Hello, happy Monday. Welcome to Meeting of the Minds Monday. I'm your host, Intellects. And the topic for today is honeymoon phase. When does the mask come off? All right, it's an interesting topic. And I wanted to come on here and share some things with you. Hey, Nye. Thanks for tuning in to Meeting of the Minds Mondays. Our topic today is honeymoon phase. When does the mask come off? If you have anything you want to share about the topic, you can mention it in the comment section. So we're going to get started right away. I apologize because I should have sent out a reminder yesterday, but I did not. So it was a last minute post. So if you were not able to catch it, I understand. It will be posted on the page for the replay. So we're going to jump right into this. I got you. I definitely got you. We can schedule something and get together. A lot of times when it comes to the word honeymoon, what do we think about? We think about the glitz, the glam, good times, the happy place, but then once the honeymoon phase is over and the real you shows up, what does that look like? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So a lot of times when we enter into any type of relationship, business relationship, romantic relationship, financial relationship, whatever it might be, we aim to impress in the beginning, to try to be our best, to look our best, to show people, look, you want to get with me because this is what's going down, right? But in reality, we can only act a certain way that's not ourselves, but for so long. So if that's not who you are originally, if you are not a person who's, really into whatever it is you're trying to impress whoever or whatever, it's not going to work. Hey, Diamond, thank you for tuning in to Meeting of the Minds Mondays. Our topic today is honeymoon phase. When does the mask come off? So, as I was saying, the honeymoon is not necessarily for couples. It can be for anything. It could be at a job. It could be for your business. It could be a business relationship, financial relationship. It could be a romantic relationship, but when it comes to after 3 months, 6 months, you could be consistent at something, but when it's not really you, eventually you're going to fall off and the real you is going to come out. Now, is it going to line up with what you've been promoting? Or is somebody or people or whatever you're doing, are they going to see who you really are once the time wears in, And can you give any examples of people who may have been in a situation where, they put on a front for so long that people are surprised when the truth comes out? Maybe a motivational speaker or an innovator, somebody who's really out there. People know who they are, and they're supposed to be like the perfect husband or the perfect wife, and then they portray this picture, and come to find out they've been doing dirt the whole relationship. You know what I'm saying? So it's tricky, and that's when you have to really have discernment, because be mindful of who you decide to have in your life, no matter what type of relationship it is. Test people before you trust them, because if you just believe somebody at their word the first time they give it, they haven't given any basis. They haven't been tested. They haven't been tried to see, okay, well, I'm gonna hold you to it, and once I hold you to it, we're gonna see if what you say lines up with who you actually are. A lot of times we give people the benefit of the doubt because, we try to look at the good in people, but in reality, people can do some crazy things, and nothing should be getting past us. We shouldn't think like, oh, I never thought this person would do that. Me personally, I don't put anything past anyone. Anyone is capable of doing anything, so be mindful. And I believe that we all have masks that we wear. There's different positions that we all have, that we all carry. So, being a mother can be a mask. Being an entrepreneur can be a mask. Being, someone that's in school, that's another mask. You show different sides of you, but, ultimately, you have to figure out who you truly are and walk in that unapologetically. Some of us are focused so much on what other people think that we hide who we truly are just to please others. And in reality, no one can please everybody, right? So you said most believe it's best to 100% be yourself in a relationship, so that honeymoon phase isn't a phase, it's a lifestyle. That's a good point. And, the question that I have for that is, do you believe that you are giving 100%? Because some people don't give 100%. They might say it. And yes, I agree that when it comes to any type of relationship, you need to give your all. Whatever you put in, that's what you're going to get out. So why not go hard? You know what I'm saying? So welcome to Meeting Other Minds Mondays. Our topic today is honeymoon phase. When does the mask come off? And just going over what that means. Like, honeymoon sounds real nice, real good, but the reality of it is a phase. And how long until the real person comes out? Just being mindful of all of us wearing different masks, but being able to accept who we truly are and being able to share with others who we truly are without caring about what they think, which is why I believe that there is a honeymoon phase to begin with, because we're so caught up with trying to impress others to try to have that great impression, that we lose sight of who we are for however long we keep the mask on. Now, it's okay to present yourself in certain ways if you're in different rooms and you want to, be seen as like, okay, I'm in this field and I want to be seen as the best, so I'm coming like this. That's fine. But if that's not who you are on a daily basis, then you have to kind of infuse yourself in there. And I would suggest that you stay true to yourself regardless of what arena you're in. So if you're a mother, how you are as a mother, or a father, if you are a business owner, how you are there, because no matter where you are, there you are. So when you come into knowledge of who you are, it shows in every aspect of your life. So a lot of times, some of us wear a mask because we really don't know who we are yet. And it takes time and work to actually get to know yourself. It takes isolation. You know what I mean? It takes separation from people. If you're always around other people and you don't spend time with yourself, how do you get to know you? You should be one of the first relationships that you have. Because if you set your expectations based on how other people view you or what other people expect from you, you're always going to wear a mask. And whatever they say, that's what you're going to go with. But the question is, when does the mask come off? Like, you could be in a business relationship for years and, something crazy happens and then you start seeing the true colors of your business partners and you're like, whoa, I didn't see this coming. So does the mask come off when trials happen, when something bad happens? How can you tell when someone has a mask on? So that's a question I have for y'all. How can you tell? Because a lot of times people wear masks so much they forget they have it on. And that can go for all of us, myself included. So when do you take it off? When do you let your guard down and say, you know what, this is me. This is who I am. I love me. I accept me. And whether or not you accept me is on you, So when does the mask come off? That honeymoon phase only lasts for a short period of time. Somebody can be nice when everything's good. But when all hell is breaking loose, what do? How do you respond? Who you are when you're by yourself is who you truly are. How you respond in different tests and trials that you have, that's who you are. So, who are you? Because, we want to know. We want to know who you are. That is the question. So for me personally, I believe that tests definitely bring out the true character in people, how you respond to different events in your life, not just the good, but the bad. If there was always good, you would never really test your limits to see what you can do under pressure. If there's no pressure, there's no growth, You say you have to do it now. That's what I'm working on. And it's not even intentional. It's about growing and self-reflection constantly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the more you get to know yourself, the more you realize, okay, so this is me. This is not me. This person challenges me. This person just fills me with negativity. This person does this. You have to surround yourself with positive energy. You got to surround yourself with real people, real things that's going to feed you. And you have to be honest with yourself first, because if you're used to lying to yourself, whatever you do to yourself, you're going to do to everybody else, because we are reflections of each other. How you see someone else is how you see yourself. Diamond, you said, I feel people hiding behind the mask because they don't fully trust themselves. The honeymoon phase is a partnership. That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, definitely. Because if I don't feel like I am capable of being who I am, I'm going to keep hiding who I am, because it's like, I don't know. Well, and especially when it comes to popularity, because a lot of times when people are very popular based on what they do and not who they are, they feel like they have to keep that mask on all the time, right? So I haven't gotten the book yet, but I heard a little bit about Will Smith's book that he just came out with. And he talked about how he's played the roles of different characters and been on TV and did all these different things, but nobody actually knows how he really is or who he really is, because of the character that he's been portraying on, out in the public. So it's just like, well, him taking his mask off was right in the book, so people can really find out who he actually is, right? So what I want to do now is I want us to watch a video to talk a little more about this. So it's and welcome everyone that just tuned in. So this Meeting of the Minds topic today is honeymoon phase. When does the mask come off? And what happens when you've been wearing it for so long that you don't know how to take it off? Like, what are the steps? How do you move past it? All right, so this here is who you are is more important than who you aren't. All right, and I will be sharing the YouTube videos that I'm gonna be sharing with you today, and I'm gonna have it in the comment once this is posted, so that way you can check it out on your own time. All right.
I remember feeling incredibly small, nothing more than a distraction, right before I got up to present my research in Tokyo. to a group of the world's leading cochlear implant researchers and surgeons. I've been hoping for a poster presentation, maybe even a small PowerPoint in one of the side rooms. What I got instead was a primetime slot in the main symposium in front of 500 surgeons and professors, many of whom had been practicing for more than 30 years. I'm young as far as researchers and doctors go, but I care deeply about my team's research, which, thanks to the novel use of hydraulics, had the capacity to make a real difference to people's lives. Sitting down, waiting my turn, on my left was an Italian professor of surgery, representing a multi-million-dollar research team from Europe, complete with their very own promo guy. Across the aisle, his main competitor was a Japanese professor, esteemed and valued in the community, who was also presenting to the world for the first time a similar surgical robot. In third place was myself. Well, actually, I think third place might have been a little bit generous. I felt kind of like one of the kids who plays at halftime as entertainment, to be honest. Sitting there, awaiting my turn, with about 27 years less experience than the two professors sitting either side of me, I really wished I was doing a poster presentation. Cochlear implantation is an amazing technology. It gives an artificial sense of hearing to the deaf through a 2-centimetre bit of plastic, a little bit skinnier than a noodle. This techno noodle is implanted into the ear by a specialist ear surgeon. And whilst the results aren't quite as good as normal hearing, they're a fair bit better than nothing. We used to only implant those who were totally deaf, either those who were deafened through rotten luck or were born without their hearing organ, the cochlea, functioning quite right. But in the mid-2000s, we started to implant more and more those who had age-related hearing loss, who still had a tiny bit of not quite so useless hearing function left. Now, age-related hearing loss is a little bit different from other types of hearing loss. It tends to disproportionately affect the higher frequencies more, which is why grandparents can sometimes have a difficult time hearing their grandchildren with their squeaky voices. It's kind of funny, but it's actually a really tough thing. If there's one thing that grandparents really care about, it's their ability to communicate, in particular with their grandchildren. Now, it can still be a little bit hard for us to imagine, so let's pretend that half of us develop moderate to severe hearing loss at some point in our lives. At that level, you can't have a conversation with the person sitting next to you without one of you having to shout to make yourself heard. It's a real impediment to communication. And it's not that unlikely either, considering 50% of people over the age of 65 are affected by moderate to severe hearing loss. And for us, when we hit our 60s, those numbers will be much higher, considering growing evidence about the long-term use of headphones. Now, we do have hearing aids, and they are great. They're used for this exact reason, but they have their limitations. They're pretty difficult for old arthritic hands, and they're not very effective in those who have severe or profound hearing loss, which is quite a lot of people. Scientists started to realise that if you could preserve someone's residual hearing whilst complementing it with that of the artificial sense of hearing from a cochlear implant, the outcomes were much better, particularly for nuanced sounds like music, tone, and conversation in noisy places. The problem was we had no idea how to do this. Generally, it was taken as a given that once you put a cochlear implant into a patient, you destroyed that patient's remaining hearing. And that's because the tiny movements associated with putting an implant inside the ear are the equivalent of a jet plane taking off right next to your head. It's very loud and likely to ruin all of your remaining hearing. Now, that's where my team's research comes into play. We're looking at hearing preservation in cochlear implantation. And at this point, I have to pay tribute to my research supervisors, Professor Ganesh Rajan, Professor David Fletcher, Dr. Andacharya, and Miss Daisy Tavora Vieira. Without them, I simply wouldn't be standing here today. We all have our own roles in the team. My role is to work in the laboratory, coming up with new ways of trying to reduce the variation in pressure inside the cochlea during surgery. The surgery itself is incredibly intricate and tiny. It takes a very steady hand and decades of practice. It's actually not that different to the board game Operation, but the stakes are slightly higher. My research was difficult because we were having problems with human variability. Namely, any variable I investigated was dwarfed in comparison to the innate human tremor, which made the use of a surgical robot an obvious choice. Now, we do have a photo here, but I must warn you, this is real science. It is scary, confronting stuff. Please don't be blown away by how awesome it is. Ready? Here we go. Yes, that is masking tape. Yes, that is blue tack there. Yes, that is a clamp from my local hardware store. Look, it was a simple handheld device which produced a slow, reproducible insertion over the course of a minute. And it was about as simple as something you'd expect to find in a box of Lego. I was shocked to find out that this device not only matched our best surgical efforts, but matched the best efforts of the leading surgeons from around the world. Not with an expensive contraption, but with a $15 Lego ripoff. We actually tested this experimentally. The very best implant surgeon in the world could only produce an insertion that was about half as good as our device with respect to variation pressure inside the cochlea. All of a sudden, we had a device that had the capacity to take cochlear implantation into the next phase for the price of 3 overpriced coffees. So we took this idea to Japan. Now, I'll be honest, I felt like a total fraud. I was presenting on novel, developing ideas, and I was the first of 3 surgical robots to be presented to the world for the first time that day. Surgical robots aren't even that common, even at a surgical conference, so the odds were pretty small. In any case, I got up on the day, I made my presentation. The only speaker, not a professor. The only research team not backed by millions of dollars of research funding. I said my bit, I answered a few polite questions, and I sat back down. And it wasn't until after the presentation that I started to realise that we might have something of real value here. People were coming up to us and asking us all sorts of questions. Have you commercialised the device yet? Is the intellectual property for sale? Have you tested this in humans? I was blown away that a device so simple could be held in such high regard by the scientific community. Even now, we're in conversation with companies overseas looking to develop our ideas to incorporate into widespread models. I've been so focused on my age, inexperience, and the relative simplicity of my research that I hadn't thought about its value to the wider community. Now, I'm not pretending to be the next great researcher or surgeon out there. I'm just trying to be a good one right now. But I think the real lesson in this is that great ideas don't have to be complex ones. And they don't have to come from someone with years of experience. On that stage in Tokyo, I was so focused on what I wasn't that I forgot about what I was. I was young, inexperienced, but I was coming at the problem from a fresh angle. And I had an idea that had the capacity to help millions of people. If you've got a problem and you're passionate about fixing it, that's all that matters. Thank you.
All right. So, he spoke a lot about, William Crohan is his name. And, he spoke about his expertise when it came to research and things of that nature when it came to the cochlear implant, which is what deaf people wear so that they can hear. It's like a surgical procedure. And basically, one of the things that stuck out to me was that he said he was so focused on what he wasn't that he forgot about what he was. And the reason why he did that was because of the fact that he was comparing himself to other people. So I think a lot of times when it comes to learning how to take your mask off, you have to stop comparing yourself to other people because when you start comparing yourself to others, it becomes a competition with them instead of with yourself. And if you're so focused on how others are, or oh well, they have this and I don't, and they have that, then you start to want to be like them instead of wanting to be like yourself, when you have so much to offer. As a person, you have so much to offer. So yeah, so we're gonna bring Brandy on here and see what she has to say about this topic. And feel free to chime in if you have any comments or questions. Hello.
Hi there.
How are
I meant to be ready. I had something that was, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was ready with something that has everything to do with this right now conversation. I've struggled with that all my life, trying to please people, up and down, back and forth. You have to excuse me. I'm trying to look at my phone.
Oh, no problem.
It's an emotional day for, I had to take a leave of absence because I just can't. Mentally, you got to take care of that. And I have so many things in this phone. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll find it later. You forgive me, okay?
No problem. Yeah.
I have these pieces. I have these pieces titled very manic pieces. That's what I'm dealing with my mental illness. Whatever. But what I have to tell you is that I used to try to change myself because of people. You know what I mean? I can relate to all this stuff. I'm glad I stumbled on here.
Yeah.
Because this is some therapy. Now, forgive me for not having my stuff together.
It's all right. It's all right.
I wish I could find it, but okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go in and take it to a crazy level. All right.
But
sorry, maybe I'll try to press the button again. I just can't find it.
Okay. Well, thank you for
All right. Thank you. I just want to say I can relate.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. All right.
All right.
I just found it. I'm sorry. Did you cut me off?
All right. Go right ahead.
Oh, my nose is bad. Okay, it's titled Unmasked. Okay?
Yes.
Unmasked. Manic number 6 series. Makeup. Half fake, half face. Who will you be today? A decorated accessory we've become. Your mask. Don't forget your mask. Physical, emotional, your past. Historically, men mainly wore masks. For tribal and celebratory transitions, help primitive tribes deal with change and danger. Masquerades conveyed meaning, purpose, and structure during shifts. A false show or pretense, masquerade. Put it on. No. Protect your well-being. Be unmasked today as that you are uniquely, wonderfully, and fearfully made to simply be. Take it off and declare today, I am created as a special gift to display imagination and talent. I do not have to fit in. I'm daring to be different. All are witnessing. It's time to start the unveiling. Everyone, silence, please. Unmasked. You are a beautiful piece of art. Auction to the highest bidder. God to create. Peace. Thank you. I hope my face went all up in the camera, but I don't care. Because I don't have on no mask. My name is D-Bar, and this is the year to be. We coming into the year to be doper than dope, because I remember who I am. So good. All right. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, that was right on time.
I stay tuned.
All right.
I felt it. All right, now. Thank you for letting me share.
Yes, no problem.
Should I hang up on this thing? I don't know
I'll take you out.
how. Okay.
All right, y'all. All right, that was Miss Brandy. Make sure y'all go follow and support. She definitely shared a piece that was right on time. We definitely need to learn as a people how to unmask and really accept who we are without the validation of others. And when we don't spend time with ourselves and get to know ourselves, date ourselves, treat ourselves with the respect and the confidence and the love that we deserve, then we will settle for whatever. And we don't need to settle, right? Because we're worth more than settling. And what we have is unique, is needed, and is, and when you realize that what you have is something that's needed in this world, you will do more to protect you from the haters, the people that's trying to change you, people that you may compare yourself to. But when you learn to just accept you for how you are, flaws and all, that you're a work in progress, you might not be perfect, but you are a perfecting person, then it really doesn't matter what anyone else says. But you got to learn that, taking away that self-doubt and just trusting who you are and trusting that you are not going to be anybody but yourself. Eventually the mask is going to come off, whether it's months, years, eventually it'll come off. And what will you do when it's off? When does it come off? How long will it take for you to actually accept who you are and love who you are without apology? All right, so we're going to watch another clip and we're going to talk about it afterwards.
I was looking for a way to make some extra money. I saw this video of a guy talking about how much money he made on DoorDash. So
Thank you. Why is it that intelligent people procrastinate? Why is it that people that are so self-motivated often self-sabotage? And why is it that no matter how many new business opportunities we get or new skills we try to learn, many of us just are simply finding different ways of earning the same amount of money or achieving the same kind of level of success, as if there was kind of a glass ceiling above our head that we were trying to break through but didn't know how? Now, one thing we do know is it's not down to lack of resources or opportunity. We live in a time in history where there are more resources and opportunity than ever before. In fact, there's many people that have access to resources and opportunity that really never get the bat off the shoulder and take a swing at life. And the results are mediocre or disappointing. And then there's other people, those who have access to virtually no resources or no opportunity, and against all of the odds went out and created magic for the rest of us to go, wow, and stand in awe of. People like Colonel Sanders, who retired broke at 65 before starting KFC. Obviously Oprah, people like Helen Keller. Or even Albert Einstein, who dropped out of school at 15 and then failed the entrance exam for the Zurich Polytechnic. No. See, if you want a masterclass in taking away the excuse that resources and opportunity are the reason why you're not successful, go study any of the lives of the people on screen. But you see, as human beings, our nervous system is hardwired for comfort, whereas the essence of what makes us, some would say our soul, is hardwired for growth. And it's managing that dynamic tension between how good a comfort zone feels and the innate calling of our potential that lies outside of that causes the frustration for most people and keeps them on that hamster wheel of mediocrity. So how do we unravel that? Well, let's look at the human brain. See, what separates us from almost all of the animal kingdom, the crowning achievement of human biology, is the front part of the brain, what's known as the neocortex or the frontal lobe. And that neocortex operates at a brain wavelength of alpha or beta. And one of the challenges is that doesn't get turned on until we're about 7 years old. See, kids operate in delta and theta, which is why babies sleep so much, and why kids live in that magical fantasy world where they're operating at theta with no critical thinking. Now, it also means children are very impressionable, and why Aristotle is widely quoted as saying that give me the child for 7 years and I'll give you the man. But what happens when we drill down on that? Why is that important to why we procrastinate or self-sabotage? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say it's dad's turn to take little Johnny shopping and the kids. And, mom's busy that day and he's kind of frustrated. He's got to go out and get the job done. And, one thing you need to know about dad, he's got his own stuff to deal with right now. He's figuring out how to pay the credit card bill that was higher this month than he thought. He's worried about whether the boss is going to be downsizing soon. And he's still reeling from the lack of intimacy that morning caused by a fight that he had with his wife. He's dealing with the stuff as we all do. Now, little Johnny doesn't live in that world. And so when they get to the checkout, as every good retail psychologist knows, they place the products at the eye height of the people you're trying to sell to. And so Johnny sees the toys, and Johnny wants the toy. He's like, Daddy, can I have a toy? And Daddy comes out of his mind fog and says, no, you can't have a toy. For starting, he doesn't think he can afford it, but now's just not the time. But as parents will understand, children are prime examples of the ability to be persistent, are they not? And so little Johnny says, Daddy, I want a toy. Please, can I have a toy? See, little Johnny doesn't live in a world of credit card debt. And in his frustration on dealing with his stuff and trying to handle the kids and all the other stuff, Daddy snaps out and says, listen, you can't have a toy, you don't deserve it, you're not good enough, you're not behaved enough today. And Daddy thinks that'll just keep him quiet while he goes back to dealing with his big world problems. But what's happening right now is quite significant. You see, little Johnny doesn't hear Dad's frustration. All Johnny hears is that I'm not good enough, I'm not worth it, and I'm undeserving. And probably spends a large part of the rest of his life unconsciously acting out that behavior to justify why he's right, including self-sabotaging if the threat of success comes along to challenge that inner model of the world. You see, when it comes to being able to work with psychology, and after thousands of hours of working with people all over the world, I've come to know that the undisputed first law in psychotherapeutic intervention and other areas, the undisputed first law of personal growth is this, that people will never rise above the opinion of themselves. Now, one of the challenges that opinion is largely formed in our childhood years, sub-7, from the perception of where we think we did or didn't get love from the people we most wanted it from. I usually let people sit with that one for a while. It also mirrors the first law of relationships, which I firmly believe states that no one can ever love us more than we love ourselves. Now, one of the other challenges on that is that we are also creatures of habit. Now, what does that mean? That means that prefrontal cortex, that neocortex, that frontal lobe that serves all of that executive decision-making is prime real estate. In fact, the brain weighs 1/50th of the body weight, but takes up 20% of all of the calories. So when it comes to using that frontal lobe, evolution has some shortcuts. It says, well, clearly you're using intelligence to make the decision, so it should be a good decision. So when you choose the fries instead of the salad, it doesn't care. Its job is to adapt. And if you make that decision over and over again, then rather than take up critical thinking, which is meant to serve you intelligently, it hands it over to the midbrain. And it becomes an unconscious behavior or pattern, or what we also call a habit. See, now you order the fries just because it's what you do. You don't even question it. Now that can be very useful when it comes to learning, or not learning how to have to walk every day, but it also sets up some challenges. You see, we suddenly arrive at work on our day off. We don't know why. Or, we suddenly get home and realize, where did the last 2 kilometers or 2 miles of driving go? Wow, how did I avoid all of the crazies? Good old midbrain at work. But the deeper challenge to that, as creatures of habit, is the fact that we're using our conscious brain only a small amount of the time, that critical decision making. The rest of the time, like 95% of the time, is what I call people sleeping awake. In fact, I'll give you an analogy. Why do you imagine that the conscious mind is an ant? Here he is, cute little fella. Ants are industrious, they're hardworking, they're determined, they're going to get the job done. This is your conscious mind. In fact, this particular ant went to a personal development seminar last week. He set his goals, and he's marching north confidently in the direction of his achievements. The problem is, he's marching over the back of an elephant that's heading south. Our unconscious mind, with all of our limiting patterns, limiting beliefs, and all of the other unresolved self-issues that go on there. And we start to see why we self-sabotage. See, how do you get that elephant moving in the right direction? Well, let me give you another example, another analogy. The mind is like a compass needle. In fact, it can only point in one direction at a time. But when we're operating from our ants, that 5% of the time where we're conscious and using free will, we can grab that compass needle and we can point it anywhere. That's what free will allows us to do. If we're feeling down, we can go choose to watch a comedy or call a friend who can cheer us up. If we're feeling low on energy, we can go put the kettle on and make ourselves a coffee or a drink. But 95% of the time, we're not doing that. And as soon as we let our hand off of that compass needle consciously, it will always drift back to its default magnetic north, which unfortunately for most people is more negative than positive. You see? And that leads us to our third challenge. And that is something you may want to really tattoo on the inside of your eyelids. And that is that environment trumps will. What do I mean by that? I mean that our intention will always be beaten by our environment over time. For example, let's say that you're a music fan, but you don't like jazz. That's for the other people. You're kind of a country and western kind of guy or girl. And you listen to country and western in the car going to work, but your car's broken down this week, so your good neighbor around the corner that works at the same place has offered to give you a lift. So you're going to share the 45-minute drive to work and back for the next 5 days. But they listen to jazz. Now, I don't care what you think consciously. Within 3 days, I know what's going to happen. Within 3 days in the car, you're tapping your feet to the beat. Within 5 days, you're humming it in the shower. You see, we don't get to choose whether or not we get programmed. We're programmable by design. We can only choose how we want to be programmed. Another way of saying that is you can have all of the intention to be as warm and hot as you like. You can raise your body temperature. You can put on some big clothes. But if you choose to live in a freezer, the environment's going to win over time. In other words, you can read all of the positive affirmations. You can stand in front of the mirror and say that you believe in yourself. But if you live with somebody who is constantly pulling you down, somebody who is reminding you of why you're not good enough and why it won't work, at some point you're going to start to believe it. It's the law of conformity. If you hang out with 9 recreational drug users, I've got news for you, you're most likely going to become the 10th. If you hang out with 9 positive people that look at life through the lens of how we can, not why we can't, to hold up a mirror for each other's greatness, to be midwives to each other's dreams instead of stealing them, you're likely going to become the 10th, or you'll leave the environment. It's the 95% law, the law of conformity. Yeah? So, how do we change that? Well, there's 3 tips that I want to share with you that'll help turn this around. Now, I'm a pretty simple guy, so I want to give you some pretty simple tips. And I'll break it into 3 things. The first is, stop putting the wrong things in. You see, as I said, we are adaptation machines. Our bodies, our physical bodies adapt to our environment. We don't get to choose that. We only get to choose the environment we put them in. If it's the gym or McDonald's, the body doesn't care. Its job is to adapt. But it's the same with our mind. So stop putting the wrong programming in. In other words, if you think of the 2 biggest things that impact us unconsciously more than anything else, it's the mainstream media and our peer group of who we hang with. Let's touch on the media for a second. Now, for those of you that still think that the mainstream media is about reporting the news, I've got news for you. You're in Disneyland. See, the job of the media is not to report the news. Are you kidding me? The job of the mainstream media is to stimulate another part of the brain called the amygdala, which is designed evolutionarily to notice negative before positive, so that they can hook your attention out of the mass of the crowd and record you as a viewing statistic to justify rate cards and advertising. The media is not a charity. So I haven't watched a news report or read a newspaper for pretty much 17 years now. Yeah. For those of you that still watch things like, is it CNN? Constant negative news? I got news for you, right? From what I understand, it's all the same news. It's the same news it was 17 years ago. It's just happening to different people. And so you cannot watch the news and be positive. It's like saying, I want to be healthy and I smoke. That doesn't work. You can go to the gym as many times as you want, but if you're smoking, you can't be healthy. It's a binary equation. And if you're being programmed by the mainstream media, you can't have that default magnetic north move away from being negative. It's constant programming. People say, well, how do you know what's going on in the world? Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, everything's going on in the world. A far better question would be, what do you want to choose to focus on? Think of the Amazon rainforest at night. Yeah, everything's going on. But the media want to take your little flashlight in your hand and point it and say, oh my goodness, look at this. It's a snake eating a rat. Versus you saying, yeah, but have a look at this hummingbird being born. So it's a choice. So I have no clue what's going on in the world. I have every clue what's going on in my world. And if something's important enough, it'll find me. So stop programming yourself with why the world won't work and start taking charge of where you point your flashlight. Now, the other thing is about peer group. Now, some people say, yeah, I could probably change my friends, and some of us maybe should, but I can't change my family. Yeah, my brother's the most negative person I know. My mother-in-law is always telling me I'm not good enough for her son or whatever it may be. Well, I know that we can't change our family. And you know, looking at the reasons why you chose your parents is another TED Talk. But the best advice I can give is love your family, choose your friends. Now, the second thing, start putting the right things in. Now, we live in a time in society where there's so much great information, whether it's a podcast, whether it's inspirational interviews, whether it's the books or the lives of some of the people we looked at earlier. Every single day, or at least every single week, if you want to take your compass needle and start remagnetizing it in a positive direction by exposing yourself to the kind of information that supports your potential and your greatness and where you want to go. Now, there's no excuse for not being able to do that now in a society where it's so available. But if you're not choosing to do that, by default, you're going to be hooked into somebody else's agenda. If you don't start filming as the star of the movie in your life, by default, you're going to end up as a film extra in somebody else's. And then the third point, get the things that shouldn't be in there out. What do I mean by that? You know, work with a decent mentor or a coach that understands how to navigate the minefield of human behavior. Somebody that isn't just going to teach you skills, but somebody that can reach in and find those unconscious patterns and be able to rip them out for good. I'll give you an example. I had a client come to me a while back. He said, oh, I want to learn time management. Now, a normal coach or what have you would probably teach them some good time management skills. But within 2 minutes, it was easy to see that time management wasn't the issue. The real issue was his inability to deal with rejection. And therefore, he was saying, he wasn't saying no to people, because by saying no, it would trigger a rejection response. And therefore, he was saying yes to too many things, and therefore there was too much on his calendar, and therefore he thought he needed time management. Do you get the idea? You see, when we're able to start addressing things like our unconscious programming, when we start to create the best habits that we can by programming ourselves consciously, when we start grabbing that compass needle and bringing it over to the right direction so that the 95% of the time we're sleeping awake, we're able to be who we need to be, that's when we can start to achieve the real game in town, which is self-mastery. See, before you spend another penny on workshops or skills or anything, work on yourself. See, mastering the game of self throughout human history has been the #1 recommendation of virtually everybody that achieved it and then preached the benefits of it to people that usually weren't listening. But by mastering our sense of self, we're able to walk into a room where everything's descending into chaos and retain our center. When everything's breaking down around us with the eye of the storm, it's like, move, I'll handle it. See, that's the best way that you'll be able to handle uncertainty. And when we commit to self-mastery, we give ourselves the best shot of becoming the best and greatest versions of ourselves that we can be. And then we get to become the example and the invitation to others not the imposition. Nobody changes because you tell them to. People change because they're inspired to change. And we can only inspire them by being the example and the imitation. And at that point, we have a chance of being able to really make a change in this world, make a difference, which is what the world needs right now. And ultimately, be the embodiment of what Gandhi said, which was to be the change he wished to see in the world. Thank you. God bless.
All right, all right. I'm glad you all are enjoying the information that we put out. Just to recap, so stop self-sabotaging. That's the first thing, right? And we all do it, right? We're in our head too much. We doubt ourselves. We have to change our programming in order to change our view of ourselves and also the view that others see us when we show up, right? So, stop putting the wrong programming in. So whatever you feed on, that's what's going to grow. So if you are focused more on what other people are saying about you, how you are, based on whether you have a certain amount of friends or company or followers or what have you, if you're focused on the wrong things, that's what you're going to feed on, the wrong things. All right. Change your environment. So these are just some tips to help take the mask off, to get from the honeymoon phase to who you are in acceptance, right? Self-mastery, like he said. Okay. And for those of you that want to know who that was, his name is Peter Sage. All right. So, and again, I will post the links once this is posted. But yes, your environment affects you more than you know. And a lot of times, like he said in his presentation, what happens when the negative people are people who are family? You can love your family from a distance. Everybody that you are related to is not necessarily family. All right. And we can talk about that on another live. But when you are focused on, being better, you have to isolate yourself from people who may be negative. You have to change your environment. And if they're in your environment, you need to get another one. Okay. We got to put you first. Also, it's your body's job to adapt. So whatever it is that you want to do, make sure it's worth it, because your body will adapt to whatever environment, whatever situation. And if you're not training yourself to have the right response, that's what it's going to get used to. All right. Like he said, if you are trying to train yourself to be healthier and you do nothing but unhealthy things, your body's going to adapt to being unhealthy. All right. So it's your choice what you decide to focus on. Okay. Also, start putting the right things in your mind. So in order for you to change, you have to replace a negative behavior with a positive one. So you have to learn how to put the right things in your mind to focus on, to feed on, so that way you can, you know, do better and take that mask off and be authentically yourself. You have to learn how to accept you. Don't compromise or compare yourself to other people or people please, when that's not who you are. Because eventually the mask comes off and eventually who you really are is going to show up. So what are you going to do then? Right? Learn to accept who you are fully and authentically without apology. All right? Don't get hooked into someone else's agenda. Get what shouldn't be there out. So, if you're not living in your truth, you're living in someone else's. So, before you close out and go into this new year with all these different resolutions and what have you, learn how to get your own agenda, stick to it, be committed to yourself, and live out your truth, not someone else's. All right. Commit to self-mastery. Work on yourself. That's a daily process. Learn yourself. Love yourself. Live in your truth. All right. And be the change that you wish to see. And also focus more on who you are and not who you are not. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our time for today. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in, those who participated. Just to go over a couple things from people who have shared. They said they feel people hiding behind the mask don't fully trust themselves. Working on what you need to work on now, not procrastinating, and being intentional, learning about yourself, growing, self-reflection is key. Also, bringing 100% to the table so that way you are not wearing a mask. You're putting it all out there, but there's also a time and place for everything. And most of all, having discernment, so whatever relationship, whether it's business, whether it's financial, whether it's romantic, whatever type of relationship that you have or that you're trying to have, it's good to get it, to have good impressions, to make good impressions, but at the same time, don't be something or someone that you're not, because eventually the mask is going to come off. And when it does, you need to be prepared. All right. And also, the mask comes off when the trials come. Who you really are is not present until you face some type of challenge. So embrace that and learn from it. Study who you are. Take some time out for you away from everybody so that you can learn more about yourself so that you can accept you. All right. All right. So just a couple of announcements. Showcase Your Talent Show is this Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. You can register for next month now if you would like. Registration for this month is closed. All right, so stay tuned. The Zoom link will be posted very soon. But contestants compete to win for a $100 grand prize, plus a feature spot in the following month. There's also feature spots and sponsor spots. So whatever you feel you want to participate in, or if you just want to view, that's fine too. But if you want to register, you can register early for next month. All right. We also have email subscription. So everything involving intellects, and you could be the first to know. You want to subscribe to our emails. You definitely get up-to-date information, and you will be on a first-to-know basis. We have YouTube subscriptions. We have Intellects, a Place for Entrepreneurs podcast. Season 3 is on the way. If you are interested in being a feature, definitely reach out to us so that we can collaborate with you. We have merch. That's right. We got some merch, y'all. We got merch. We have books. We have promo options. We have voiceover options. We have Meeting of the Minds Mondays once a month, maybe twice a month if there's a part 2. And we talk about anything from business to self to art and everywhere in between. If you have a topic that we have not discussed and you want us to discuss it on one of our future lives, you can email us so we can add it to the queue. All right, we have Q&A Wednesdays once a month where we focus on a specific question to kind of get dialogue, get to know each other better apart from the artist side of things. If you have any questions that you would like us to answer during the live, you can email us or put a question in the question box and we'll answer it that way. We also have Freestyle Friday in 3 parts. So open mics are first or fourth Fridays. We have Battle Art where you get a chance to win $25, and those are second Fridays. Sometimes it may be twice a month depending on if we don't find a winner the first time, but you'll get all that information ahead of time. And then we also have our feature segments, which we are putting on hold for right now because we have the Art of War Art Awareness fundraiser where we are spotlighting a bunch of wonderful artists for a greater cause, which is to raise awareness on the uniqueness, the beauty, and the necessity of art and how it sounds, feels, and looks different based on your culture, your background, and where you're from. So we're raising funds so that we can come to a city, state, or country near you. All right, so that's pretty much everything. Again, I am your host, Intellects. Thank you so much for taking this time out on this Monday to meet with the minds of other wonderful, amazing people. We appreciate all you do. We appreciate your support. you viewing, you participating. We do not take it lightly. So thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful Monday and an awesome week. Until next time.